There's a photograph taken on May 15th, 1904 in a village called Baringa, deep in the heart of Africa. In it, a man sits on a wooden veranda, staring down at something in front of him. His name was Insala, and what he's looking at are the severed hand and foot of his 5-year-old daughter, Bawali. This isn't a story about ancient history. This happened just over a century ago, in what should be one of the wealthiest places on Earth. And the man responsible never spent a single day in prison. 1885. The great powers of Europe gathered in Berlin to carve up Africa like a Christmas turkey.
Gentlemen, this line secures our western access, but it risks the northern territories. We must consider the implications.
Britain wanted territory. France wanted prestige. Germany wanted both.
Gentlemen, we begin. Africa awaits our order. Agreed. The Congo Basin is first. Proceed. Mark the boundaries.
But one man wanted something different, something nobody saw coming. King Leopold II of Belgium, a monarch of a small, young country, a nation so insignificant in European politics that most people couldn't find it on a map. But Leopold had an obsession, a hunger that consumed him. He wanted an empire. The problem? Belgium wasn't interested. The Belgian government had repeatedly rejected Leopold's colonial ambitions. They saw colonies for what they were, expensive, bloody ventures that drained national treasuries. So Leopold did something unprecedented, something so audacious it still shocks historians today. He decided to acquire a colony not for Belgium, but for himself, personally. He created a front organization, called it the International African Association, draped it in the language of humanitarianism and philanthropy. He promised to end the Arab slave trade, to bring civilization and Christianity to the Dark Continent, to maintain free trade for all nations. The European powers bought it, every single word. On February 5, 1885, at the Berlin Conference, Leopold was granted sovereignty over 905,000 square miles of Central Africa, a territory 76 times the size of Belgium itself, an area we now know as the Democratic Republic of Congo. He called it the Congo Free State, but there would be nothing free about it. The Congo Basin, one of the most biodiverse places on Earth, home to millions of people living in hundreds of distinct communities, speaking hundreds of languages, with rich cultural traditions stretching back millennia. And beneath the forest floor, in the waters, in the very vines that hung from the trees, unimaginable wealth: ivory, minerals, and rubber. The 1890s. The world was changing. The automobile was born. Bicycles became the rage, and the pneumatic tire, that miracle of modern engineering, required one crucial ingredient: rubber. Lots of it. And the Congo had rubber. Wild rubber, growing naturally in the forest vines. More than enough to satisfy global demand. More than enough to make one man fabulously, obscenely wealthy. But there was a problem. Extracting wild rubber was labor-intensive. It required men to venture deep into the forest, find the rubber vines, make incisions, collect the latex sap, process it. It could take days, sometimes weeks, to harvest enough rubber to meet the quotas. Leopold didn't want to pay workers. That would cut into profits. So he invented a new system, a system that would maximize extraction while minimizing costs, a system built on a simple equation: terror equals productivity. The Force Publique, Leopold's private army. Thousands of soldiers led by European officers, many recruited from Zanzibar, West Africa, and eventually from the Congo itself. Some were former slaves. Others had been kidnapped as children and raised in mission stations, then conscripted into military service. These men were given a mandate, a set of quotas. Each village, each community, each family was assigned an amount of rubber they had to deliver, every 2 weeks, without fail, without excuse. The quotas were deliberately impossible, set high enough that meeting them required every able-bodied person to abandon all other activities: farming, hunting, fishing, family, everything. We had to go further and further into the forest to find the rubber vines. We went without food. Our women had to give up cultivating the fields and gardens. Then we starved. Wild beasts killed some of us when we were working in the forest. Others got lost or died from exposure and starvation. And we begged the white man to leave us alone, saying we could get no more rubber. But the white man and their soldiers said, "Go, you are only beasts yourselves." But what happened when villages couldn't meet their quotas? What happened when people physically couldn't produce what was demanded of them? This is where the system reveals its true face, its monstrous, calculated cruelty. The Force Publique soldiers were given rifles, European rifles, Albini rifles, and ammunition was expensive, had to be shipped from Europe at considerable cost. So the officers implemented a rule that would ensure soldiers weren't wasting bullets hunting game or saving them for potential rebellion. For every bullet fired, a soldier had to provide proof that the bullet had been used to kill someone who deserved killing, someone who had failed to meet their quota, someone who had resisted. The proof? A human hand. Baskets of severed hands, collected like receipts, delivered to white officers for inspection, counted, recorded in ledgers, filed away as evidence of a job well done. But here's where the system spiraled into something even more diabolical. If a soldier missed his target, or used a bullet to hunt an animal, or simply wanted to conserve ammunition, he still needed a hand. He still needed his receipt. So soldiers began taking hands from the living. And there was another calculation, a darker one. How do you terrorize an entire community? How do you ensure that the message of absolute compliance spreads like wildfire through the rainforest? You don't just kill the people who fail. You punish their families, their children. Women and children were taken hostage, held in stockades, prisons with death rates of 3 to 10 people per day. Husbands and fathers were told, meet your quota or you'll never see your family again. And if you still failed? I had seen women and children summarily arrested, taken away from their homes and families, to be kept in wholly illegal and painful detention. While the white man killed people, he made others prisoner and cut off hands and feet. Alice Seeley Harris, an English missionary and photographer who arrived in the Congo in 1898 with her husband John. She came to teach, to evangelize, to help. What she found instead defied human comprehension. With a simple Kodak Brownie camera, Alice began documenting what she witnessed: the mutilated bodies, the children missing hands, the villages burned to the ground, the emaciated hostages. And then, on May 15, 1904, 2 men arrived at her mission station. It was just after 8 a.m. Alice Harris and another missionary, Dr. Edgar Stannard, were at the Harris residence when 2 boys from the mission brought news. There had been a massacre in the village of Walla, and 2 survivors were coming. They were bringing evidence. When the men arrived, one of them, Nsala, was carrying a small bundle wrapped in leaves. When he unwrapped it, what Alice saw made her blood run cold. The severed hand and foot of a child, a little girl, 5 years old. Her name was Boali, Nsala's daughter. The sentries of the Anglo-Belgian India Rubber Company, ABIR, had come to Walla because the village had failed to meet its rubber quota. When they arrived, they killed Nsala's wife. They killed his daughter. They mutilated their bodies. And according to testimony, some of the sentries consumed the flesh. Cannibalism wasn't traditional in this region, but the Force Publique had recruited men from areas where it was practiced, men they could use not just as soldiers, but as instruments of psychological warfare. Later, Dr. Stannard wrote about that morning. It was a dreadful sight. As I write these lines, I can still feel the shiver of horror that ran through me as I watched the look of despair on that father's face. Alice, keeping her composure, asked Nsala to pose for a photograph on her veranda with his daughter's hand and foot laid out before him. Because she understood something crucial. Words could be dismissed. Testimonies could be doubted. But a photograph was undeniable proof. Look at his face. Look at his eyes. That's not grief. It's not even shock anymore. It's something beyond both. It's the look of a man whose entire world has been reduced to those 2 small pieces of his child, lying on wooden planks. A man who exists now only to bear witness, to make sure the world knows. What words could possibly describe what he's feeling? What language exists for this? There isn't one. But something was happening, something Leopold hadn't anticipated. Information was leaking out, testimonies were being collected, photographs were being smuggled to Europe and America. Edmund Dean Morel, a shipping clerk working for Elder Dempster Company in Antwerp, his job was simple: manage cargo manifests for ships traveling between Belgium and the Congo. And one day he noticed something strange, something that didn't add up. Ships heading to the Congo were loaded with guns, chains, and explosives. Ships returning from the Congo were packed with rubber and ivory. But according to the official trade statistics, there was almost no capital flowing into the Congo. No manufactured goods, no payments, nothing that would indicate legitimate trade. Morel realized the truth. The rubber and ivory weren't being traded. They were being stolen, extracted through slave labor, through a system of terror that made the transatlantic slave trade look almost merciful by comparison. He quit his job, gave up his salary, his security, and devoted his life to exposing Leopold. In 1900, he began publishing articles. In 1903, he founded a newspaper, the West African Mail, and then he met a man who would become his most powerful ally. Roger Casement, an Irish-born British consul stationed in the Congo. In 1903, following a motion in the British House of Commons, Casement was ordered to investigate the rumors of atrocities. What he found exceeded his worst fears. For 3 months, Roger Casement traveled through the Upper Congo. He interviewed survivors. He documented atrocities. He collected testimonies from people whose entire villages had been destroyed, whose families had been murdered, whose children had been mutilated. Casement's testimony number 1. They had endured such ill treatment at the hands of the government officials and soldiers that nothing had remained but to be killed for failure to bring in rubber or to die in their attempts to satisfy the demands. Casement's testimony number 2. As we fled, the soldiers killed 10 children in the water. They killed a lot of adults, cut off their hands, put them in baskets, and took them to the white man, who counted 200 hands. When Casement returned to the coast, he sent an urgent telegram to the Foreign Office. I have returned from the Upper Congo today with convincing evidence of shocking misgovernment and wholesale oppression. On February 12, 1904, the Casement report was delivered before the British Houses of Parliament. 40 pages of documented horror, 20 additional pages of individual testimonies detailing killings, mutilations, kidnappings, and systematic brutality. The report confirmed what Morel had been saying, what the missionaries had been documenting, what the Congolese had been screaming into the void for years. The Congo Free State wasn't a humanitarian mission, it was a death factory, an extraction machine built on bones. Casement met with Morel. Together, they founded the Congo Reform Association in March 1904, and they launched what would become the world's first international human rights campaign of the modern era. Alice Harris's photographs became weapons, projected as lantern slides in churches and meeting halls across Britain and America. Thousands of people saw them, were horrified by them, could not unsee them. The campaign gathered momentum. Arthur Conan Doyle, creator of Sherlock Holmes, wrote The Crime of the Congo. Mark Twain penned a savage satire called King Leopold's Soliloquy, in which Leopold complains that the camera is the only witness he couldn't bribe. Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness, published in 1899, took on new, terrible meaning. Booker T. Washington, Anatole France, Bertrand Russell, some of the greatest minds and voices of the era lent their support. The Congo Reform Association didn't just raise awareness. They lobbied governments. They pressured diplomats. They made the Congo question impossible to ignore. Leopold fought back. He created his own press bureau, paid journalists to write counter-narratives, claimed the photographs were fake, that the missionaries were lying, that Casement was a sensationalist. But the evidence was overwhelming. In 1905, even Leopold's own Commission of Inquiry, which he'd been forced to establish under international pressure, confirmed every detail of Casement's report. Finally, in 1908, the Belgian parliament forced Leopold to relinquish control. The Congo Free State became the Belgian Congo, a formal colony under state control. But Leopold didn't give it up for free. Oh no, he negotiated a payment, 110 million francs to cover his debts, another 45 million francs for his building projects in Belgium, ornate museums and monuments built with blood money, and 50 million francs in future receipts from the Congo. And before he handed it over, he destroyed the records, burned documents, eliminated evidence, making it impossible to ever fully account for what had happened. So, how many died? How many people perished in Leopold's Congo Free State? The honest answer? We'll never know for certain. The Congo had no census before Leopold's rule. Population estimates varied wildly, and Leopold made sure much of the evidence disappeared. But here's what we do know. The first Belgian census in 1924, 16 years after Leopold lost control, recorded a population of approximately 10 million people. Multiple independent lines of research by historians and anthropologists examining local sources, church records, oral histories, and genealogies suggest that the population in 1885 was roughly twice that number, around 20 million. That's a population decline of 10 million people. Half the population gone in just over 2 decades. Not all those deaths were murders. Disease played a massive role. Sleeping sickness, smallpox, influenza, dysentery, but the system Leopold created made those diseases catastrophic. When men are forced into the forest for weeks at a time, when women and children are held hostage, when entire villages are burned, when people are fleeing as refugees, famine follows, immune systems collapse, disease spreads like wildfire, birth rates plummet. To put this in perspective, the death toll in Leopold's Congo Free State likely exceeded the number of people killed in the genocide in Rwanda. It rivaled the death toll of the Armenian genocide, and it happened during what we like to call the civilized era of European history, the age of progress, the Belle Epoque. And the man responsible? King Leopold II died in 1909 in his palace, surrounded by wealth extracted from the Congo. He was never charged with a crime, never faced a tribunal, never spent a single day in prison. He did, however, become a symbol of the absolute worst of European colonialism. His name became synonymous with horror.
Today, the Democratic Republic of Congo is one of the poorest countries on Earth. Despite having some of the richest mineral deposits in the world, copper, cobalt, diamonds, gold, most Congolese live in extreme poverty. The country has been racked by decades of conflict, corruption, and exploitation. The First Congo War, the Second Congo War, often called Africa's World War, which killed between 1 and 5 million people. Ongoing violence in the eastern provinces, armed militias, sexual violence used as a weapon of war. The echoes of Leopold's terror still reverberate through the Congo. The systems he established, extracting wealth while providing nothing in return, ruling through violence and intimidation, viewing Congolese lives as expendable. Those patterns persisted long after he died. And in a cruel twist of history, the mineral that powers our smartphones today, coltan, comes primarily from the Congo. The technology you're probably holding in your hand right now has a direct lineage to the rubber that Leopold extracted. Different resource, same exploitation, same human cost. Let's return to that photograph, to Nsala, sitting on that veranda, looking at the severed hand and foot of his 5-year-old daughter. After Alice Harris took this photograph, it traveled the world. It appeared in Morel's books, it was projected in lecture halls, it was published in newspapers. It helped bring down one of history's most brutal regimes. But in Nsala, we don't know what happened to him. After he served as a witness that day, he disappears from history. We don't know if he survived, if he found peace, if he ever recovered from what was done to his family. What we do know is this: he made sure the world saw. He sat there, in his grief, in his despair, in his rage, and he bore witness. He refused to let his daughter's death be invisible. He transformed his pain into evidence, his loss into testimony. And Alice Harris, the woman behind the camera, she understood something crucial about photography, about bearing witness. She knew that sometimes the most important thing you can do is simply ensure that horror cannot hide, that atrocity cannot exist in darkness. Mark Twain was right. The camera was the one witness Leopold couldn't bribe. And Alice Harris, with her simple Kodak Brownie, wielded that camera like a weapon of justice. These are the faces Leopold wanted you never to see, the evidence he tried to destroy, the people he treated as currency, as beasts of burden, as less than human.
But they were human. They had names, families, dreams, cultures stretching back centuries, and they deserve to be remembered not just as victims alone, but as people who existed, who lived, who mattered. The Congo Reform Association disbanded in 1913. They considered their work done, but the work isn't done. It may never be done. In 2020, King Philippe of Belgium expressed deepest regrets for atrocities in the Congo, but stopped short of a formal apology. As of 2024, no European nation has paid reparations to the Democratic Republic of Congo for colonial exploitation. The legacy of Leopold's terror continues to shape Congolese politics, economics, and society today. History is written by the victors, they say, but sometimes it's written by the witnesses, by the people who refuse to look away, by the ones who picked up cameras, pens, and voices and said, "No, you will not forget. We will not let you forget." The hand system turned children into currency, but the story of what happened, told through photographs, testimonies, and the relentless pursuit of justice by people like Nsala, Alice Harris, Roger Casement, and Edie Morel, that story turned horror into history, into warning, into remembrance. May we never forget. May we never allow such atrocities to be minimized or erased. And may we always remember, human rights are not granted by governments or kings. They are inherent, inalienable, and worth fighting for.